they battling each other. You gotta look back at it when time passes and you look and you say, you said things that agitated each other to the point that you might have wanted to run into each other.
I got the Life After Death double CD dropping March 25th.
50 Cent just dropped explosive new evidence about the murders of Tupac and Biggie, and it completely shatters everything we thought we knew. His brand new Netflix series digs deep into the dark web of gang ties, industry power plays, and buried police files that were never meant to see the light of day. Hidden audio from Keith D's own mouth and insider confessions are exposing something bigger. Whispers that the so-called East versus West beef wasn't just about rap pride, but a high-stakes game involving real money and real power. Once those lost recordings came out, the murders stopped looking like random street hits and started to look masterminded. Now imagine this, after almost 30 years of silence, mystery, and endless debate, one of hip-hop's most fearless voices decides it's time to lift the curtain on the two most infamous unsolved crimes in music history. Yes, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson is stepping straight into the fire, and this time, he's not holding anything back. On December 2nd, 2025, 50 Cent unleashed a bombshell Netflix docuseries that's sending tremors through the hip-hop world and beyond.
No. You're back at your own hotel.
We're at the Luxor.
This series dives headfirst into the shocking details behind the murders of Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G, two kings of rap whose lives were brutally cut short in their prime. It's been 28 long years since Christopher Wallace, known to fans as Biggie Smalls or the Notorious B.I.G, was gunned down in Los Angeles on March 9th, 1997. And just 6 months before that, on September 13th, 1996, Tupac Shakur, the poetic revolutionary, the voice that spoke truth to power, lost his life in a violent Las Vegas drive-by. These weren't just rappers, they were cultural giants, voices that shaped generations. Their influence went way beyond music. It changed fashion, politics, and the entire identity of hip-hop. For decades, fans have been stuck in online rabbit holes, Reddit threads, Discord chats, YouTube breakdowns, and every comment section imaginable, asking the same burning questions. Who really pulled the trigger? Was it a gang feud, or was there an industry puppet master running the show from the shadows? Theories have gone completely wild, but now, 50 Cent's bringing receipts. The rumors have been nonstop, and the truth harder to catch than getting verified on Twitter. Until now, enter 50 Cent, the executive producer with zero fear of controversy. He's never been one to bite his tongue, and this time, he's taking it all the way. Through his multi-part Netflix expose, he's pieced together testimonies from industry insiders, never-before-seen archives, and chilling audio that reveal just how dark and dangerous that era of hip-hop really was. But make no mistake, this ain't some lazy rehash of old headlines. This is a raw, fearless deep dive featuring people who were actually in the room, people who lived the chaos and are finally ready to spill what really went down. The docuseries wastes zero time jumping into the heavy stuff. By episode 2, it's full throttle. That's when things get truly wild, uncovering a narrative that's been whispered in studio backrooms and speculated about in countless articles, but never exposed this boldly or this clearly.
I do move in silence.
50's team brings forward voices we've barely heard before. Kirk Burroughs, a label co-founder. Mark Curry, a rapper once signed to Bad Boy Records. And Roxanne Johnson, the ex-wife of Craig Mack. These aren't outsiders or bloggers talking rumors. These are people who are deep inside the machine, watching the power moves, the rivalries, and the dangerous street politics unfold right in front of their eyes. And that's where things take a darker turn. One of the most jaw-dropping revelations the documentary uncovers is how the East Coast versus West Coast label wars escalated into a street-level proxy battle, with real gangs getting pulled into industry beef. The whispers say the Crips allegedly linked up with East Coast backers, while the Bloods sided with West Coast crews. Suddenly, this wasn't just a war fought through diss tracks or magazine interviews. This was real violence spilling into the streets, and people were paying the ultimate price. The documentary doesn't just hint, it lays it out clearly and powerfully, arguing that these dangerous alliances may have been the tipping point behind both murders. In one haunting moment, Kirk Burroughs, now older and far removed from that chaos, reflects on it all with heavy regret and says something that sticks with you, that only with time and distance does the full devastating picture finally come into focus. There was serious orchestration behind Tupac's death, and the way the documentary lays it out is straight up chilling. After Tupac's shooting in Las Vegas, the music industry machine didn't slow down for a second. Instead of pausing to mourn or figure out what really happened, insiders say there was pressure from the top to keep pushing albums, keep doing interviews, keep the money flowing at all costs. It's wild. Business over blood, image over life. According to those close to the situation, Biggie was heavily pushed, some even say forced, to travel to Los Angeles to promote his upcoming album, Life After Death, even though everyone knew the tension between coasts was at a boiling point. It was like walking into enemy territory when every warning sign said, "Don't go."
That's a strong dude, yo. I know Duke, you know what I'm saying?
Very
He's
strong.
real strong. So when it was like he got shot, I was just more like, again? You know what I'm saying? He always getting shot or shot at. He gonna pull through this one again, make a few records about it, and it's gonna be over, you know what I'm saying? But when he died, I was just like, whoa.
Biggie wasn't reckless. He saw what was happening. He knew the energy was off, and he didn't want to make that trip. But the label's agenda, the management's goals, and the never-ending promotional grind overrode basic common sense and safety. Burroughs' testimony in the series hits hard. He argues that Biggie was practically led to his death. He paints a picture of an industry so blinded by profit margins and record sales that it ignored the human cost. The obsession with staying at the top created the perfect storm, turning that tragic night in Los Angeles into something that feels less like bad luck and more like inevitable tragedy. And just when you think the series can't go any deeper, it drops actual evidence, not just rumors or speculation, but real audio recordings that flip the entire narrative on its head. These tapes come straight from Dwayne Keith D. Davis, a known member of the Southside Crips who was arrested in 2023 and is still awaiting trial for Tupac's murder. The footage reveals his 2008 proffer session with police, a type of protected interview where suspects can speak openly in exchange for limited immunity. What he says in that room, absolutely bone-chilling. In those recordings, which are now central pieces of evidence in the murder case, Keith D gives a first-hand detailed account of what happened the night Tupac was shot. He breaks it down minute by minute, describing exactly how things went down on September 7th, 1996. He recalls how earlier that same night, there was a violent clash at the MGM Grand Casino between Tupac, members of his crew, and Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight against a man named Orlando Anderson, who, as it turns out, was Keith D's nephew. That fight wasn't random, and the way Keith D tells it, this was no coincidence or street misunderstanding. It was a setup brewing for months, and the consequences would change hip-hop forever. Orlando Anderson wasn't just some random guy caught in the mix. He was allegedly tied to an earlier robbery of a Death Row Records affiliate. So when Tupac spotted him at the MGM Grand that night, all that pent-up tension exploded into chaos. It went from sighting to fight in seconds. Punches thrown, security scrambling, cameras rolling. The energy was dangerous, raw, and about to spiral way out of control. What Dwayne Keith D. Davis describes next sounds like the blueprint of a revenge hit. After the casino altercation, Davis claims he and his crew, Anderson, DeAndre, Big Dre Smith, and driver Terrence T. Brown, armed themselves and went hunting for retaliation.
Leave behind.
Yeah, because Frank was driving.
Their first stop was Club 662, the spot where Tupac was supposed to perform that night. They waited there for more than an hour and a half, strapped and ready, but the opportunity never showed. Then, in one of those moments that feel like fate twisting the knife, they decided to roll out to a liquor store. And that's when everything changed forever. While cruising the Vegas Strip, Davis says they spotted Tupac's black BMW with the rapper himself sitting in the passenger seat, window down, chain shining, larger than life, even in motion. That sight flipped a switch. Davis recounts making a sharp U-turn to pull up alongside Tupac's car at the corner of East Flamingo Road and Colville Lane, a moment frozen in hip-hop history. Then comes the part that hits like a confession. From the front passenger seat, Davis says he pulled out a .40 caliber Glock and handed it to the back. According to his own words, Anderson said, "Give it here, I'll shoot." Moments later, shots rang out, multiple rounds tearing through the night and straight into Tupac's BMW. Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. One bullet pierced his lung. Suge Knight behind the wheel took a graze to the head, but somehow managed to keep driving as the Cadillac sped off into the dark. 6 days later, on September 13th, 1996, Tupac Shakur's The Voice of a Generation was gone. Respiratory failure and cardiac arrest took his life, and just like that, hip-hop hip-hop lost its revolutionary heartbeat, but the story doesn't end there, not even close.
I moving solid. You making it loud, Greg Caden making it loud, everybody making it.
In the audio confession, Davis drops a bombshell. This wasn't just revenge, it was a paid hit. He claims there was money on the table, a bounty, for taking out both Tupac and Suge Knight. But here's the twist. He says they only got half the payment because Suge survived. That single statement opens a Pandora's box of questions. Who would bankroll a hit like that? Who had both the motive and the means to put a price on these men's heads? The idea that this might have been bigger than street beef, that it could have been orchestrated by powerful figures far beyond the gang world, is what makes this revelation so explosive. The documentary makes one thing crystal clear. This wasn't some random street beef. It was calculated, planned, and deeply connected to the money, egos, and power plays running the industry at the time. Every testimony, every piece of evidence paints the same chilling picture. This was part of a bigger pattern of organized chaos, born from record label rivalries, territorial wars, and the toxic hunger for dominance that defined hip-hop's most dangerous era. The series lays it out heavy. What began as artistic competition between two coasts spiraled into an all-out war where words turned into bullets and every move had deadly stakes. Lives were on the line, friendships were shattered, and reputations became battle flags. Once the streets got involved, there was no turning back. The cost, irreversible, devastating, and all rooted in the night that changed everything. Let's rewind. Back to that fateful night in Las Vegas when celebration turned to tragedy in the blink of an eye. Understanding that timeline is key to grasping how one night meant to be about victory and glory became one of the darkest chapters in music history. It was September 7th, 1996, the night of the Mike Tyson versus Bruce Seldon heavyweight title fight at the MGM Grand. The crowd was electric, packed with celebrities, athletes, and industry heavyweights all ready to witness greatness. Among them was Tupac Shakur, rolling deep with Suge Knight and his crew from Death Row Records, including members of his rap group, The Outlaws, his brothers in every sense of the word, loyal to the bone. The fight itself, over before it began.
What went through your head when you saw that?
They shoot my. That's, you know what I mean? They shoot, that's what we saying. Like, yo, they shooting the car. They shoot, you know, we telling Frank, like, yo, what the you know what I mean? It's going down.
Tyson crushed Seldon in just 109 seconds of the first round. But what went down after that fight would change everything forever. As Tupac and his entourage made their way through the MGM Grand's casino lobby, Trevon Trey Lane, a Mob Piru blood affiliated with Death Row, suddenly froze. He spotted Orlando Anderson, a known Southside Compton Crip, and this wasn't just some random run-in. There was serious history behind this encounter. Earlier that same year, Anderson had allegedly been involved in a robbery at a Foot Locker in Lakewood, California, where Lane had been jumped and stripped of his gold Death Row medallion. A massive sign of disrespect. That chain wasn't just jewelry, it was a symbol of power and loyalty. That robbery set off a ripple effect that amplified the tension between the Crips and Bloods, both of whom had deep ties, whether directly or indirectly, to the hip-hop industry's biggest players. So when Lane pointed out Anderson in the casino, saying that's the guy who disrespected Death Row, Tupac didn't hesitate. He reacted instantly, emotionally, furiously, and physically. Surveillance footage from that night, which has been analyzed frame by frame in countless documentaries and police reports, shows Tupac throwing the first punch, knocking Anderson straight to the ground. The moment was fast, intense, and public. And from that punch, the fuse was officially lit. What should have been a night of celebration after Tyson's fight suddenly became the opening act to a revenge story that would end in gunfire. And from that instant, nothing in hip-hop or in American music history would ever be the same again. Suge Knight and the rest of Tupac's crew jumped in fast, and for a few chaotic seconds, Orlando Anderson took a serious beating right there in the MGM lobby. Security swarmed the scene and broke it up before it got even uglier, sending both groups their separate ways. But in the streets, that kind of public humiliation doesn't just disappear, it demands payback. In that world, respect is everything, and if you get disrespected in public, the response has to come quick, loud, and deadly. That's the part most people missed, and what the documentary makes impossible to ignore. According to Dwayne Keith D. Davis, the man who's given the same account across multiple sources, his 2008 police proffer, his 2019 teen memoir, Compton Street legend, several media interviews, and even grand jury testimony, the retaliation plan was set in motion almost immediately after word spread about what went down at the MGM. There was no sitting around, no long talk, no waiting for a better time. The message was simple: our guy got jumped. We're handling this tonight. That's how fast things moved. Within hours, wheels were turning, guns were being loaded, and the Vegas night was about to explode into something no one could take back. Meanwhile, another perspective, one that cuts deep, comes from E.D. a member of Tupac's group, the Outlaws, who was actually there, driving in the car right behind Tupac's black BMW that night. His retelling of those final moments is both real and heartbreaking. He described the vibe in the air, that buzz of excitement, the unstoppable energy of a crew at the top of the world. They were headed to Club 662, where Tupac was scheduled to perform, the after party that was supposed to stretch into the early morning hours. The night was meant to be nothing but celebration, money flowing, fans waiting, and everyone feeling untouchable. But looking back, EDI admits the warning signs were there, flashing bright, but no one wanted to see them. In one moment that still gives fans chills, he recalls Yaki Gaddafi, another Outlaws member and one of Tupac's closest friends, asking their security guard, Frank Alexander, a question that now sounds almost prophetic. "You got your gun, right?" When Frank replied that he didn't, explaining that Las Vegas police had warned anyone caught with a weapon would face arrest, Gaddafi got frustrated, even angry. He could feel something was off. He knew how dangerous it was to be in Vegas that night, with tension sky high and enemies in every direction. Gaddafi sensed the danger before anyone else. He understood, maybe more than anyone in that moment, just how exposed they really were. And the tragic part?
That's the look on everybody's face. You know what I mean?
Did you have a gun on you?
Nobody had guns.
Nobody.
2 months later, Gaddafi himself would be murdered in an unrelated shooting, making his instincts that night all the more haunting. Idi Amin summed it up perfectly in one of his later interviews, saying it felt like it was going down and nobody could stop it. That's the cruel irony. The biggest rapper on the planet at the peak of his fame, riding through Las Vegas in a flashy BMW with barely any security, no protection, and every reason in the world to be careful, yet the system around him, the fame, the ego, the fast life, made him feel untouchable. That illusion of invincibility was shattered within hours, and the night that was supposed to be another victory lap for Tupac turned into the point of no return. Why did it all go so wrong that night? Because of a chain of small decisions, each one made for legal reasons, or because of warnings from local police, or out of plain caution. But when stacked together, they created the perfect storm of vulnerability. Tupac, one of the most famous rappers alive, was riding through Las Vegas unprotected, unaware that his enemies were already on the move. Meanwhile, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis's account paints a bone-chilling picture. His crew was locked in and ready. They weren't roaming aimlessly. They were on a mission, armed with that same .40 caliber Glock, the very weapon that would later be named as the murder gun. They drove with purpose, hunting for revenge. Their first stop? Club 662, the spot where Tupac was set to perform that night. They pulled up, parked, and waited for over 90 minutes, scanning every car, every face, every movement. But there was no sign of Tupac. Frustrated and anxious, they finally decided to roll out toward a liquor store. And that's when fate made its move. Whether you call it coincidence or cruel destiny, what happened next sealed history forever. From across the street, they spotted a black BMW gliding through traffic. And there he was, Tupac Shakur, visible even from a distance, full of life and charisma, laughing, glowing, larger than life under the Vegas lights. That moment turned into the final sighting. Before the storm, Keefe D's retelling of what followed is graphic and precise. He describes the sharp U-turn his crew made to pull their white Cadillac up beside Tupac's car. He recalls handing the gun toward the back seat, and according to his own words, that's when the shooting erupted. Gunfire tearing through the night, the air filled with chaos and screams. E.D. Amin, who was driving right behind Tupac's car, described what he saw as something he'll never forget. An arm extending from the back of the Cadillac, followed by rapid flashes of light and deafening shots. He and the other Outlaws members were frozen in horror, unable to react, unable to protect their brother. They were sitting ducks, watching helplessly as their leader was ambushed before their eyes. Tupac's BMW, riddled with bullets, swerved wildly before coming to a shaky stop. Suge Knight, despite bleeding from a graze wound to his head, somehow managed to take control of the wheel and race toward the hospital, desperate to save Tupac's life. Paramedics met them halfway and rushed Tupac to the University Medical Center, where doctors fought through the night. performing multiple surgeries, trying to repair the shredded lung and the damage to his internal organs. For 6 long days, the entire world held its breath, fans praying, friends refusing to believe the end was near, but the injuries were too deep, the trauma too massive. On September 13, 1996, at 4:03 p.m., Tupac Amaru Shakur was pronounced dead. He was just 25 years old, gone far too soon, leaving behind a voice that could never be replaced, and a legacy that would only grow louder with time. The streets cried that week. Fans across the globe wept. The hip-hop industry went silent, not just in grief, but in fear, because everyone suddenly realized if Tupac could be taken like that, no one was untouchable anymore. If someone as big, powerful, and seemingly untouchable as Tupac could be taken out in a hail of bullets, then who was really safe? That's the haunting question echoing through the documentary. And it's the moment where the story turns even darker, because according to the evidence laid out, the violence didn't stop in Las Vegas. It followed hip-hop straight to Los Angeles. The docuseries makes a chilling case that Biggie Small's murder just 6 months after Tupac's was no coincidence. It suggests his death was the direct result of the same deadly cycle of revenge that started with that Vegas shooting, a retaliation spiral that no one could escape. On March 9th, 1997, Biggie was in Los Angeles for the Soul Train Music Awards after party, despite being warned by friends, associates, and security that it was too dangerous. The tension between East and West was still thick in the air, Tupac's death was still fresh, and emotions were raw. But the pressure from his label and the hype around his new album, Life After Death, pulled him right into the storm. That night, after leaving the Peterson Automotive Museum, Biggie climbed into his GMC Suburban, surrounded by his entourage. But as they rolled out into the LA night, a dark-colored Chevrolet Impala crept up beside them, and in an instant, the nightmare repeated itself. A shooter whose identity remains officially unknown to this day opened fire. 4 bullets tore into Biggie's body, one of them piercing his heart and hitting vital organs. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but the injuries were catastrophic. At 1:15 a.m., Christopher Biggie Smalls Wallace was pronounced dead. He was just 24 years old. Another legend gone. Another king cut down before his crown even had time to settle. The documentary doesn't hold back. It shows never-before-seen, grainy footage of the crime scene, broadcast for the first time. The chaos, the flashing lights, the confusion. You can feel the panic in the air as sirens wail and people cry out in disbelief. It's raw, haunting, and painfully real. The series also includes archival clips of Voletta Wallace, Biggie's mother, her voice filled with heartbreak and conviction. She says she's always believed her son was killed not just because of random street beefs, but because he was caught in the crossfire of something much bigger, an ongoing war between powerful people inside the music industry. Rivalries, money, pride, and betrayal, all tangled up in a web that no one's been able to fully untangle. And that's what this documentary drives home. These weren't just acts of random gang violence. These were calculated, orchestrated hits, moves in a larger proxy war, where the street soldiers were just the visible part of something way deeper. Behind the guns and gang ties were people with real money, real influence, and real motives. The series doesn't claim to name every puppet master, but it lays out enough evidence, testimonies, and police records to make one thing clear. These 2 murders were connected. They were part of a brutal cause and effect chain that turned hip-hop into a war zone. And here's where it gets messy, controversial, and flat-out frustrating for anyone who's followed this story over the last 3 decades. Because even with all this evidence, with all the confessions, interviews, and new leaks, justice still hasn't been served. The deeper you look, the murkier it gets. And that's exactly why this documentary hits so hard. It forces us to face the question no one's been able to answer for nearly 30 years. Who really ordered these hits? The real people behind the legends, Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G, are gone. And with them, a part of hip-hop's soul vanished forever. Their stories have been told 1,000 times, yet the truth about who really pulled the strings behind their murders still hides in the shadows. Maybe the full answers will never surface, but one thing's for sure, their impact will echo for generations to come. That's the end of this deep dive, but the conversation is far from over. What do you think really happened behind the scenes? Were these just tragic coincidences or something way bigger? If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep this discussion alive, because the truth still matters.